Hello and welcome to The Millennial and the Mom. I'm Maddie, the Millennial,
And I'm Katie, the mom.
and welcome to our very first episode. We're so excited to be here.
Well, Maddie, actually, let's take two of our very first episode because your audio was messed up during the first time we tried to do this, but I'm not being critical. I'm happy to be here.
I know it's your friendly reminder to always check your input and output on your Zoom settings, but oh well, we have all of 0 listeners right now, so hopefully we sound okay and you can hear us loud and clear. If not, let us know. But like we said, this is our very first episode, so we're super excited to be talking to all of you.
Well, we're excited to be here today, and we're talking about something very relatable to both of us, raising a puppy. Maddie's on puppy number one, and maybe her only puppy based on her experience. We as a family have 3 dogs, 2 of whom are still with us. Rest in peace to our original dog, Sunny. And 2 came to our family as puppies, and 1 dog we rescued at about a year old. But let's be real, anyone who knows Aspen, he's still a puppy in many ways, 11 years later.
And he's still very much a rescue dog, despite only having spent 9 months of his life on the street and 10 years on a loving family. But
You can't leave the rescue behind you.
that's true. The trauma was just too great. Um, but yeah, so my pandemic puppy is turning 3 next month, which is crazy. Um, I think, I'm excited to hear your perspective on raising dogs because, well, you've also raised kids. So I think that'll be interesting. I'm like, okay, there's no way having a baby is harder than raising my puppy, but I'm sure I will be humbled one day when we do have kids. But yeah, so I think we can get right into it. I mean, let's just rip the Band-Aid off. Is raising a 8-week-old puppy the same as raising or dealing with a newborn?
Oh boy, we're jumping into the spicy topic right at the top. I think let's save that to the end of the episode. I have a lot of opinions to share about that, but
Oh my
I
God, you're
want
gonna
to
make us wait.
I'm going to make you wait. I want to get this episode started off. Like, let's just ease into this. I don't need to get into my spicy takes on this opinion quite yet. Like many people, you got a pandemic puppy, as did your sister, one of my other daughters. She also got a pandemic puppy. And so let's talk about why you decided to get George, or might I more realistically say, what in the hell were you thinking?
I mean, I know you love your grand dog, so I won't take that personally, but yeah, I guess so. Taking a step back, George is my dog. He's at this point, I guess, almost 3-year-old yellow lab, which is absolutely insane. I feel like the past 3 years have been a blur. Like, I feel like I haven't had him for 3 years, which is crazy. Um, but yeah, I got him when he was whatever, you have to wait for puppies. So he was either 8 weeks or 12 weeks when I got him. But yeah, I like a lot of things I do in my life. It was a relatively rash decision.
No idea where
Um,
you got that from.
no idea. It's not like my mom's
No.
a rash person
I
either, but
never, I never make rash decisions.
the apple truly does not fall far from the tree. But yeah, so just taking a step back to a different time, it was late spring 2020. We were, lysoling our groceries and making masks out of t-shirts. And I was
Memories.
working, yeah, good times, good times. But yeah, I was working in investment banking, not like a profession most people would recommend getting a dog during. But I was like, hey, we're work from home. I was living in Charlotte, North Carolina at the time, which is a super dog friendly city. Love Charlotte. I now live in New Jersey, just for context. Still a dog friendly city I live in. But and so I was like, wow, it'd be so fun to have a dog right now because like we're stuck at home and who knows when we're going back into the office and like when else would I ever have a chance to raise a dog. And so I started to look around at that point, like mom, you mentioned earlier, like we do have 2 rescue dogs. And so I liked the idea of rescuing a dog. So I started to look at like the Humane Society and a few other places in Charlotte that, you could adopt. And just given the fact that Charlotte, a lot of people have homes and they're not necessarily living in apartments or they have a townhouse or whatever. A lot of them have requirements where you needed a fenced in yard. And I was living in an apartment at the time, all I had was a balcony. And so I quickly kind of realized, okay, it's not going to work for a lot of these places to adopt a dog, and the demand was also starting to get crazy where like they could be selective, they could, give people with homes priority. And so I started to look at breeders and what type of dog I would want. I really love golden retrievers, and so I started to, look into that. At this point, you could not just like dial up a golden retriever. Like there were lots of wait lists. And so I think the and then again, I didn't want to like pay to have someone like fly me my dog and all of that. So I was really looking at like North Carolina based breeders, and there was like multiple litter wait lists at this point. So like you were getting on the wait list to like have a puppy in like a year and a half. Which I was like, okay, that's not going to work because we're going to come out of COVID and whatever, like my window's now. And so I was like, okay, we had a yellow lab, Sunny, RIP, Sunshine. But we had a yellow lab growing up, and I was like, I love yellow labs. They're basically golden retrievers with less fur. So I started to look into that, and there was this breeder like 2 hours outside of Charlotte. And they had like a fresh litter. They were like little, like 2-week-old puppies at that point. But they hadn't all been reserved. So she was like, great, like we have male puppies available. She sent me a picture of all of them. It was kind of like a rainbow where they were like lightest to darkest. Um, and I picked, a really light white almost lab. And that's how, I ended up with my special snowflake George, who
That
has
is fitting because he is a special
he's a
snowflake.
special
And
snowflake.
yeah, so that's actually very fitting that he was kind of the lightest one.
He was definitely not the lightest one though, which was I mean, George is like pretty light, and we're going to post photos on our Instagram of all of the dogs we discuss in today's episode. So if you're like, oh, I can't wait to check out some cute puppies, go check that out. But yeah, he's very light. And I guess maybe he's darkened a little bit as he's gotten older, but there was definitely like one or two lighter than him. And then there were multiple ones darker than him. And there was even like a red lab in the mix, which is interesting because I guess I just don't really know how it works, but his parents were two yellow labs and they had like a red lab puppy. It was interesting.
So
Something to dive into.
you didn't pay attention in high school biology about like recessive genes and all of that. Should I be concerned?
No, I would just assume if like two fair yellow labs had a puppy, they would all be George's color.
Well, it's probably like redhead, if you have red hair, it's recessive.
Okay, well,
But
no, hearing you say that now, it makes sense. But in the moment, I was like, where did this red lab come from? Now I'm embarrassed. I know
no,
biology.
don't be embarrassed. No, I know you do. You're a very smart cookie. You're a very smart cookie.
I mean, I'm not like a scientist, but
So you went and you got George at this breeder, and it was pretty soon after you got him that you realized you had a very, shall we say, special puppy.
yeah. So, like I said, it was 2 hours from Charlotte. So my dad actually flew out. My, well, boyfriend at the time, now husband, we were doing long distance. And so he couldn't make it for whatever reason. And my dad didn't want me to do the drive with the dog by myself. So he flew out and we went. And we were like at this farm in rural North Carolina, where they raise labs. And I think the other breed they raised were short-haired pointers. And so the breeder's like giving me all the paperwork because George is like an AKC lab and whatever. And she's going over the vaccines he's been given. And George is like losing his shit. Like I'm holding him, like he's wriggling all over me. And I was kind of like, oh man, like I forgot how squirmy little puppies are. But like, this is so fun. I'm having so much fun. And then she's like, okay, like you're good to go. Like, it's a windy road down to the freeway. And, like if he starts licking his lips and like panting a lot, like it probably means he's going to throw up. But she was like, you probably shouldn't have that many issues. Like like our labs are pretty hardy and like they do well in the car. The short hair pointers like sometimes have more issues, but like he should be fine. Like you'll be fine. And so I'm like,
And just
okay.
to be clear, you had this idealized version that you were just going to be like cuddling this little
Yeah, I
puppy
thought
as
he was gonna like. We didn't bring a crate. We didn't bring anything. It's actually shocking thinking back to it, like how just like unprepared we were. But yeah, so we had like a beach towel, and we're like in my car, and I was like, okay, great. Like George and I'm gonna sit in the front seat. Like I'm gonna cuddle him on the way home. Like Dad's gonna drive, and it was like we literally like turned out of the driveway. We're on a straight part of the road. Like it's not even windy yet, and like George is like losing it. Like he wants to jump out of my lap and into like the floorboard area. And then he's like violently licking his lips and he's like panting. And I was like, oh my God, like he's gonna throw up. And dad's like, no, like it's fine. Like he's gonna be okay. Like he's just like getting used to being in the car. And then he like throws up all over the car. We like have this one beach towel that like he's supposed to be sitting on. And so like we don't have anything to really clean the car up with. And then dad's like, okay, like maybe you should sit in the back seat with him. So he has like, it was like a sedan. So there was like three seats or whatever. He's like, he can move around and he's not like sitting on your lap and your legs are moving, whatever. So like we get out of the car, we like find some spare napkins, we like kind of lay up the throw up. And then like I'm in the back seat
You
with
are
him.
like 500 feet from the
We're
farm at
like
this
still
point.
on the property. And so then like he throws up, like we get back on the road and we're just kind of like, okay, like it's like now like a mission. Like we just need to get back to Charlotte. Like this dog is clearly, not adjusting well to leaving his mom, whatever. And so he threw up like three more times on the drive. We were like in a Chick-fil-A parking lot, like trying to get him to like go to the bathroom on the side of the freeway. And we like finally make it back to Charlotte. And we like get out of the car and he like throws up again in the parking lot of my apartment. And we were like, what is up with this dog? Like I thought he was supposed to be hardy. And so that was really when we knew like, okay, George is special. Like he has some quirks. And 3 years later, he has more quirks than ever. But
So it was at that point, I mean, you said yourself it was like a little bit rash getting this dog. Did you think you had made a mistake?
no, I at various points while I've had him, I've thought I've made a mistake. But in that moment, no. Like I was still in kind of like my like, this is gonna be so fun. Like I'm gonna raise this puppy. But we did quickly realize like we like I think we like got home and we got lunch or something. And we were like, we need to literally go to PetSmart right now because we need like barricades for him. Like I'd gotten a crate and I think maybe I'd gotten a playpen too, but like it was not like we were like we need dog gates, toys, something for him to sit in the car if I need to take him in the car. So like it was like we went and just bought like anything PetSmart had that was puppy branded. We were like, we probably need one of these. And like dad's like,
You were an easy mark.
we were so easy. And we're like, we have George, who's like so tiny in PetSmart, and like you're not supposed to put him on the ground because he's not fully vaccinated. So I'm like holding him, and I was like, we look so out of our league right now. Like they're probably like, what just happened to these people? We were like ashen.
It's kind of amazing because I mean the interchange at the farm was about 10 minutes, right? And you walk
Yeah.
away with this puppy and you're supposed to know what to do with it.
Well,
So
my one piece
so
of advice, and I'm sure we'll get into it more, but like the day you go get your dog, like just even if you don't plan to crate train them, like bring a crate because you have no idea like what their reaction is going to be. You've never met this dog before. Or I mean, maybe you like went and like saw them when they were like 6 weeks old, whatever. But like you just have no idea how they're going to react the day you go to pick them up.
so you get him home and now you're home alone with this puppy to train. How did that go?
I just like remember because my husband didn't grow up with dogs. Like my in-laws have dogs now, but they have small dogs. And so I remember telling him like, well, like I'm gonna get this big, burly yellow lab, which George ended up being kind of like a small yellow lab. But anyway, I was like, I'm gonna get this big yellow lab. Like people don't like when like big dogs jump on them and like get all crazy. And like I'm laughing because this like George accosted someone today doing this. But so I was like, he needs to be really well trained. So like I'm gonna be really good about training him and like whatever. And Drew's like, okay, cool, like good luck. Um, but the training was more difficult than I thought it would be. I think a lot of the problems stemmed from the fact that George has a medically diagnosed obsession with water. So for the first like 18 months of his life, he really did not enjoy eating his food. All he wanted was water. Like we've had him tested, nothing's wrong with him. But they say it's like OCD or whatever. Like he just loves the feeling of like drinking water and it's splashing on his face and whatever. So like everything you read about training a puppy, it's like use food, like give him like a piece of dog food and like any like they said whatever. And like George would like spit out the treats. We tried so many different types of treats. We gave wet food, dry food, whatever, and like it did not work. So I was like, okay, like he's obviously not food motivated. Like I guess I could have like a spray bottle and like spray him with water anytime he does something good. Um, but that was really hard. So like we went through a couple different trainers. And every dog trainer has a very different approach. You found the first trainer because I was home for 2 months And you were like, this is not going to work. Like George is so badly behaved.
Well, I mean, did I use those words badly
I
behaved?
think you had like a freak out and you were like, we need to get a trainer right now. It was like after George like drained all like 5 toilets in the house,
Yes. Okay. So,
literally
yeah.
drank all the water from every single one of them.
Yes, yeah, I do remember that. So yeah, you had a little stint where you left Charlotte, you came and you lived with us for a couple of months before you moved up to the New York area. But and George was part of the package. And I, much like you, I romanticize this. My daughter is moving home. This is going to be
Same.
so great because I'm like an empty nester, and I'm not saying it wasn't great having you home. And then you brought this little puppy, and of course, I'm like, I love puppies. This is going to be great. I mean, I cannot imagine more of a mismatch between trying to get George to assimilate with our two dogs who have their own issues to begin with. And it was absolute chaos. It was utter chaos. I had
Someone
more
was in
baby
tears like every day, like multiple times
with
a day.
us.
Mostly me,
Yes,
but other
yes.
people had their moments too.
We did have moments. Well, and I mean, I literally had more baby gates when George was trying to live here with us, when you and George were trying to live here with us, than I ever did when I had babies. I mean, it was crazy.
Well, and then Meredith, my younger sister, who got well, she calls him a silver lab. He looks like kind of like a black lab. He also looks like part wolf. I'm not really sure what the actual breed is. He was marketed as a lab, but um, who's massive. Like George is full grown now. He's 75 pounds, but he's like deceivingly heavy. Like I would say most people who look at him like don't think he's 75 pounds, but he's all muscle. He's so athletic. Bear, on the other hand, is like over 100 pounds. I don't think anyone's using the words athletic to describe him. But he was home too because she came home for this was like the 2 months between like it was like November. We were there for Thanksgiving and we left like right after Christmas. But Meredith brought Bear home for the month of December. And so we had 4 dogs in the house. And it was like absolute chaos because Bear is like so chill. He's like a big oaf. He just wants to like slink around and like lay down and whatever. And like George does not stop moving. And so it was like we had to basically separate like the other 3 dogs could like play nice and relax and whatever. And then it was like George had to just be separated from them. And he like did not like that. So it was constantly like rearranging dogs and bringing dogs to different rooms and like where else can we barricade an animal in this house? Like it was so crazy. I actually like can't believe we managed to do it.
I can't believe we managed to do it either. I mean, I think I blocked most of it out, but
Same.
well, I mean, and more importantly, somehow in this entire process, your then boyfriend decided that he would marry you and George. I mean, George was part of the package, which I mean, Drew could have run away screaming. He might still run away
I mean,
screaming,
it's
but
not too late. It's not too late. Maybe we're still in like the window to get an annulment. I don't know. So let's not give him any ideas. But I know. Well, I left Dallas because that's where you guys live now. So we drove. It took us like 3 full days of driving to get from Dallas to we live right outside New York, but on the New Jersey side. Um, and we like rented this car because I had all this stuff. And so I was like, I don't need a car because we're in a very like urban area. So I left my car at home at your guys' place. We like rented an SUV. We like loaded it full of all of my stuff. And then we like put George in the back seat with like a TV and like pots and pans and like anything I'd taken from my Charlotte apartment. And we drive for like 3 days up to New Jersey. And like I had to call the vet and I was like, I'm going on a long car ride. Like I have this dog that hates the car. Like, what should I do? And they were like, drug him. And they like gave me trazodone, which is like doggy Xanax. So George was like mildly sedated the whole drive. He was actually really good. Like he understood the assignment. He was like, Mom and Dad are stressed. Like I need to not make this any worse for them. But he would like we were like taking him out to go to the bathroom and like
trazodone will do that to you. I mean, trazodone helps you
oh,
understand the
I was like,
assignment when
I
you're a
want to
dog.
trazodone. Like I'm stressed. Like it's pouring down rain and we're driving like Louisiana. Like what's going on? Um, but yeah, so we made it up to New Jersey. I just like I vividly remember we were like unpacking the car. And of course, like we're in a city, like we're right across the river from New York City. Um, and there's like street parking and you have to parallel park and like there's a million people and like everyone's like so mean up here. They're like honking their horn at you, whatever. So we're like unloading the car. We're like in this new apartment that like we barely even saw. Like we were just like whatever will let us have like a 60-pound dog at that point, like we will take. And so we're like unloading and we're like, we just gotten there. We've been driving for 3 days. And I was like doing something, like I was starting to unpack the kitchen or something. And like Drew had taken George like around the block, and he like walks into the apartment and like lets George off his leash. And I'm like bent over, like unpacking a box. And George like comes and like headbutts me like head on because he's like so excited to like be in the new apartment. And I literally just burst into tears. And I was like, I'm just feeling like a little overwhelmed right now. And Drew is probably like, I have made the biggest mistake of my entire life. Like, I took this crazy person to New Jersey with me and her dog. Like, what is wrong with me? So yeah, it's shocking that he stayed around.
Yes. And I mean, and George, I mean, while he's still crazy, you did go through some puppy phases.
We went through every single puppy phase in the book. We went through like early puppy phase, and then like the regressions, and then the teenager phase. And I would say like we're finally like 22 months in, 23 months in, wherever we're at right now. But like we're finally at a good point where like if we're status quo in the apartment, he has his routines, he goes on his walks, we take the same route because we can't go one direction because he thinks we're going to the dog park. It's like a whole thing. Like if we stick to that, like we're in a good place. He's
So
calm
why can't you take him to the dog park?
because he goes absolutely batshit crazy the entire walk there. And it looks like I'm like restraining him or something. Like he pulls on his harness so hard. He's like so excited. He's like rabid, like panting the entire like 4 blocks till we get to the dog park. And then we get there and like, well, first of all, in the summer, they have a water fountain. So it's like unlimited water. So he won't play with any dogs. He just stands there drinking the water, and he gets so bloated, and it's like not good for them to be bloated. So I was like, okay, well, we can't go in the summer, but we can still go in the fall and the winter. But then the problem in the fall and the winter is like everyone brings tennis balls. And so you're like throwing the ball for your dog, which is great when you have like a dog that knows how to drop. But I don't. So he just takes the ball, like other people's balls, like they're not even ones I brought, and just will stand in the corner, like holding it in his mouth. And then it's time for the other owner to leave. And like I'm trying to get them their ball back. And I'm like literally like hand down George's throat, like trying to get the ball away. And like it's just it's actually really traumatic. So we don't go to the dog park anymore. But I hear it's lovely for people whose dogs can handle nice things.
Well, maybe someday George will graduate to be able to go to the dog park. He also has a bit of an issue when you have to take him to the vet, which is quite frequently. George has a lot of maladies, a lot of weird medical things seem to happen to George. And I know your vet up there has some specific rules for George.
Yeah, so we're kind of a problem family at actually most places in the town we live in, that we're just, most people know George, random people on the street. Like when my husband's walking him, he'll come home and he'll be like, "Oh, like, do you know so and so? Like they knew George." And I was like, "No, but it doesn't surprise me they know George. He's pretty well known around here." But yeah, so the vet, after many times of it being a problem, did, we started off with one drug. They were like, "You need to give him trazodone before you bring him in." Like we're not able to like give him his shots or whatever because he's so crazy. Um, and then so I was like, "Okay, like that's fine. Like we do trazodone in this house, like no problem." And so we go for like his next 6-month checkup, or he needed some vaccine or whatever. And so I give him his trazodone like 2 hours before. The walk was fine. I was like, this is gonna be fine. And we get there, and like we're in the room with him. They're like trying to do they're like looking at his teeth and his ears and whatever, and he's losing it. And the vet's like, "Oh, like I thought we had discussed like giving him trazodone." And I was like, "No, like I gave him the trazodone 2 hours ago. Like he has been trazodoned." And they're like, "Okay, well, next time you bring him in, you need to give him 2 trazodones and 2 gabapentins." And I was like, "What the hell is a gabapentin?" And they're like, "It's a mild sedative." And so I was like, "Okay, like that's fine." Like I'm not above it. Like I do have to walk this dog to and from the vet because, it's we don't have a car, or Drew has a car, but I don't have one. And so I'm like, okay, like that's fine. Like, am I going to be able to walk him? And they're like, yeah, it's like pretty mild. Like he's just kind of going to be like out of it. And so we go the next time, and I give him the trazodone and the gabapentin, and we get there, and like they're all like stunned. They're like, "How does this dog like still have the capacity to like be moving this much?" And I'm like, "You guys, you told me the dosage, the timing. I followed the instructions. Like, just keep giving me things to give him. Like, I'm one of those moms. Like, it's fine. Like, he can be as drugged as you need him to be." So yeah, he has a lot of problems. We most recently spent $2,000 2 weekends ago because the vet thought he had like a bowel blockage. So we had to take him to the emergency vet, and they sedated him to do an x-ray and blood work. And I was like freaking out because I was like, wait, okay, I mean, this dog's insane, but like I love him. Like, what if something happens to him? Um, and it turned out he was totally fine. The only thing the $2,000 x-ray found was that he was going to have impending diarrhea. Um,
How'd that work out?
it it was traumatic. I'm actually still not over it. I had it was a catalyst to have me reach out to a therapist. I was like, I'm a pretty anxious person. Like I could benefit from talking to someone regardless. And like the trauma that weekend caused me, like I was like, you know what, it's time. And I went to therapy this morning for the first time. And I was like, I have this dog, like he's probably a source of a lot of my anxiety. So I mean, we're gonna unpack it more in the future sessions, but it
Yes.
was it was awful. And the vet even offered to like hospitalize him. They're like, medically he doesn't need it, but like this is really bad. Like it was, I thought we were gonna have to like burn our apartment down. It was so bad.
Well, a lot of steam
Like
cleaning happened.
puppy diapers were bought from Target.
I actually I forgot to ask you, did you ever use the puppy diapers?
No, luckily, like the combination of drugs they gave him at the emergency vet, like did slow down just the constant leakage that was coming out. But the diapers were bought. We like put down, like I do a lot of DIY projects in our apartment. We like put down like a paint tarp. We put down towels. Like every inch was covered. But so yeah, the diapers didn't end up being necessary. But just good to know in case anyone needs them. They make them in like 5 different sizes. They have little holes for the tail.
I have raised many a dogs. The combination of doggy and diaper, I've never even heard that. So
It's because
this
you've
is
never
something
raised a George.
that's true. I mean, there's been some craziness, but I had no idea there were doggy diapers. But that brings us to, George doesn't sound cheap. I mean, having a dog is not free.
No, and I mean, I guess I'd be interested to hear your perspective because I guess like I remember going to the vet with our dogs growing up, and like Sunny, our yellow lab, definitely like tore his ACL, but it didn't end up needing to like have surgery or whatever. But I feel
Well,
like
wait, Maddie, correction. Sonny tore his ACL, and the doctor told me they could do surgery on it, or he could limp around and it would heal itself eventually. And with 3 kids who were also in braces, guess which option I chose?
yeah, Sunny,
Limping and body heal thyself was perfectly acceptable for Sonny. So your straight teeth are why Sonny had to limp around and not have ACL surgery.
well, I feel like I'm getting to that point where I'm like, okay, we've had the runaround before, like most things. And I feel like too, it's like how I'm starting to be about myself now that I'm paying for my own health insurance. I'm like, you know what, this rash will probably go away. Or like, you know what, like it's probably food poisoning. Like I don't need to go to the doctor. I'm going to start taking that approach with George. Like it's probably just going to work itself out because every time we set foot in the vet, it's no less than like $600.
Yeah.
Like it's just shocking. And I mean, I will say what, and I know people have different viewpoints on this. I do appreciate at the vet, they tell you upfront what it's going to cost, which I get. Like, okay, like this, if this is like your companion, whatever, like you should not, like you should be doing the treatment, whatever. But like I appreciated that they told me the x-ray was going to be $2,000. Like if I didn't think he needed it, like I obviously wouldn't have done it. Like I was like, okay, like this, we have pet insurance, we can get into that. Like it does cover a lot of stuff. But they're very upfront. They're like, this is gonna be expensive.
Yeah. Well, and I think, I mean, that's one thing you're going to have to make those choices, right? I mean, you can't go down every rabbit hole of
Yeah.
medical, testing. We've said no to a lot of things for our dogs before. I mean, but I think it's a little bit, we didn't get dogs till after we had kids. I mean, I had dogs growing up, but having a dog growing up, you actually have no idea what it's like having a dog when you have a dog
No,
growing
no
up
idea.
because you're the kid and you're not like the parent trying to take care of the kids and the dog. So I would say we're pretty minimalist when it comes to vet services for our dogs.
But
But
I
you
think there's
also
a difference though. Like, and I know, like, I was in high school when Sonny was like at the end of his life. I mean, he had a great life. Like, we had to put him down when he was like 14, and the vet was like, "This is the oldest lab I've like treated or whatever." But he definitely, like, when he was getting older, had a different set of issues than you have as a puppy. Like George had all of the like toddler injuries. They're like he's breaking out in hot spots. Like, what do you like? The only way a hot spot goes away is if you get the area shaved and like whatever.
yeah.
Like and he has like worms, and obviously like you have to treat the worms. Some of this is like we live in a very urban area and like he picks it up at doggy daycare and the sidewalks and whatever. But I don't think we've had anything where I've been like, we don't need to check that out. It's not like he has like a random lump and I'm like, what is this or whatever. It's all like injuries. I'm like, okay, like I can physically see what's wrong. Like, okay, like it needs to get fixed, whatever.
Right. Right. No, I agree. But what do you think about pet insurance? Because that's something we've never had. We've never even considered it, but I know it's pretty popular today.
Yeah, we've had it since I've gotten George. It's pretty, I mean, it's pretty good. I will say, like, having just gone through like a very expensive vet visit, like, I mean, you're always going to want to get more back, but I definitely feel like we've gotten our money's worth now from this year. Like the vet bill ended up being like a little over $2,000. We got a little over 1,000 back. And that was like we had not used it at all for the year. So some of that was our deductible we had to pay. So it definitely like in a year where something goes wrong, it's super worth it. The previous years, we've definitely maxed out the benefits as well. Like I said earlier, George had like a couple hot spots, which are really common in labs, especially in the summer. So like we had to get those taken care of. He's gotten worms a couple times from his doggy daycare, like parasites, different types. But for the average, just like, oh, my dog goes like every 6 months for vaccines or whatever, like I don't think it's worth it for that. Like it's really not covering like his bordetella and other stuff. That's just like you're just paying out of pocket regardless.
Right. What's your budget for George? How do you budget for him?
I mean, we blow it every month. But I mean, ideally we look, and again, like this is great for someone considering to get a dog. Like we don't send him to doggy daycare every day. We don't have a dog walker every day. Like my husband's, he does freelance sports broadcasting, so he has a much more flexible schedule, and it's usually like when he has an event or a game or whatever he's doing, like George only needs to be in his crate for like 2 or 3 hours before I get home from my day job, and so we were very lucky in that sense. But I mean, we budget like $500 a month because, he's 75 pounds. I don't even get him like Farmer's Dog or Ollie or whatever. We get him like Purina Pro, which is just regular dry food. But it's like, I think it's $90 a month for the amount of food he needs. And then, we get him like, he's still, I mean, he's gotten much better and he's settled down, but he still needs that like engagement in the morning and night, like a Kong or like some type of puzzle feeder or whatever. And so like we're spending money every month on like treats or extras outside of just his regular like twice a day food. The pet insurance is, I think we pay $60 a month, which again, like in the grand scheme of things, like is not breaking the bank. But when you couple it with the fact that, there are 1 or 2 days a week maybe that he does need to go to doggy daycare. And then if we're traveling on the weekends, like, I mean, that adds up quickly is like the boarding. Because it's like, I think the place he goes, it's like $80 a night. But I mean, I would give my life for his doggy daycare and his boarding place. Like I've taken him to his boarding place and I've been like, I'm so sorry. Like, can you wipe down his hotspot like twice a day? And they're like, yeah, like no worries. Like we love George. And I'm like, you people are like my heroes. Like I cannot thank you enough.
That's good. That's good that you have them. That's part of your team, right? That's part of
It's my
it. It
village.
takes
It's my
it
doggy
takes a
village.
village. I mean, it does take a village to raise a dog. So I mean, what do you think about you live in an area where people bring their dogs everywhere? I have a lot of feelings about like people bringing their dogs with them everywhere. I understand you got to
Yeah.
walk the dog, but just the other day, I was literally at Nordstrom at the mall in like a suburban area, and there's a couple with like each of them had a dog with them. Like one of them was a big dog too. There was
Like
a big
in
dog, and
Nordstrom.
oh yeah, just strolling through Nordstrom shopping. And so I feel like, and I think maybe this has changed a bit because dogs have now become much more integrated, I think, into people's families, which is great. I think that's wonderful within the home. But this idea around bringing your dog everywhere with you, and I can't think of anything that captures it more than this idea around the doggy stroller. I just don't understand. Like, again, I live in the suburban area. Why are people going on walks with their dog in the stroller?
Yeah, I don't really understand that. Like I again, like I don't love the doggy stroller. I just don't have a use
I
for
can
it.
see you might. I mean, maybe if your dog is you had to get your dog like you got to get George to the vet. I mean, you're not going to put George in a stroller. They don't have a stroller big enough, but
Yeah, it would be like a wagon, but yes, or something.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think definitely up here, and I think they actually like in the town we live in, I think they actually like passed some law recently because a lot of the like coffee shops and restaurants with outdoor seating that you go to, like it now says like state of New Jersey doesn't let us let non-service animals in because it used to be like at the coffee shop around the corner from us, which we love, like we go to all the time. You used to just be able to have your dog in there. And it wasn't a service dog. It was dogs like George, where, that's not what they've trained for. Like
Hmm.
they're and I am like a dog lover, like to my core. Like I love dogs. I love other people's dogs, like whatever. But like if I'm at somewhere that's not like a dog park or even just like a regular city park or a sidewalk or whatever, like if I'm in an establishment, like enjoying something like a coffee or I'm getting away from my crazy dog, like I don't want to be jumped on, like barked at by your dog, like in a, you know, establishment. Like it's one thing on the street if you're like, some dog sniffing you or you stop and pet a dog, whatever. But I do think there needs to be a line drawn between like their animals, like they may be perfect in your home, but like I just know like I have a dog that has the personality type that if he's outside of anything in his day to day, like he's losing his shit. Like if he's in the
Yeah.
coffee shop, he'd be like jumping on the counter. He'd be like trying to jump on all the people, like little kids, like whatever, not in like a vicious way. He's like the friendliest dog and like is super friendly and like good with kids, but I still wouldn't feel comfortable like exposing him to all those people.
Well, and I think even so, I mean, there's very well trained dogs out there, but I just feel like unless it's a true service dog, and
Yes.
I mean, absolutely service dogs should be, they are allowed
Yeah.
everywhere and they're providing valuable, often life saving support for their owners. But even a very, very well trained non service dog, I just don't think should be in inside of a restaurant or a coffee shop or even a shopping mall. I have
No, I
seen
agree.
some unfortunate incidents. I've seen people out with their dogs and they don't get along with other dogs. The dog has an accident. I mean, this is well beyond what people should be expected to deal with out at a store.
And I don't think it's necessarily like a big dog versus small dog problem. Like George is obviously, he takes up a fair amount of space. 75 pounds, he jumps and he sniffs around, whatever. Like I'm not pretending like he's not a large dog. But I will say I've been in plenty of places where there have been really freaking annoying little dogs too. Like, yeah, they may be in your purse, whatever, but like they're yapping or they're like whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is annoying. Like,
Yeah.
yes, they're taking up no additional space. You're holding them or whatever, but like your dog doesn't have the personality to be sitting at this coffee shop with you. Like just leave them at home or
Right.
go through get a to go coffee or something. Like it's so interesting.
Well, and that brings us back to the question from the top of the podcast, right? What's the difference or how does it compare having a puppy versus having a baby? Now, a baby you got to bring with you, right, Maddie? You do know this, right? You can't just leave a
Oh,
baby
okay,
at home and go out for a
obviously.
coffee. But
What
I
if I'm
mean,
leaving with like its dad?
that's fine. Of course, you can leave it with a caregiver, but you're not going to just like put the baby in his crib and get his or her
That's
crib and
true.
go get coffee. We'll cover these things when you reach that point. But I mean, I do know a lot of people will say, oh, having a dog has prepared me for having kids. I would say if you don't have kids or have a child and you get a dog, I do think there's a level of responsibility it instills in you, right? You have to be on a
Hmm.
schedule. You're thinking about someone's needs other than your own. You can't just like, go work 12, 15 hours, not get home on time, all those things. So yes, it does start to help you understand what that level of responsibility is going to be. That's where it ends, right? I mean, raising a
Hmm.
child is very different. I mean, just from you explaining when you went to get George, right? So, I mean, the
I mean,
level of,
obviously I didn't give birth to George.
right. I mean, but that's the thing is it's like, I hope not.
In case you were
Um,
wondering.
I'm not wondering, but I mean, listen, who knows with today what things can happen. But
Wait, have you seen the people who Photoshop their dogs' faces onto like ultrasound photos?
I can't even. But no, I mean, I think so. Yes, raising a baby is very different. And depending on how long this podcast goes on and where your life takes you, maybe one day we'll be talking about how you feel the differences between a puppy and a baby. I don't want to be that, that mom that's
Yeah,
like,
don't
well,
be a Karen.
I'm not going to be a Karen. I'm not going to be like, just wait until you have a kid. You have no idea. I'm not like that at all. But I will say, having a puppy is a level of responsibility. I mean, I've
Yeah.
seen both you and Meredith, my other daughter, go through, I shouldn't say just my other, I mean, I have another daughter, but you and Meredith go through raising puppies essentially on your own, living on your own. You don't live by us, you don't live by each other. And it's a huge responsibility. Yes. So I think in terms of, stepping up the responsibility level,
Yeah.
you can't be as spontaneous and things like that. So I think that's certainly something to consider.
I think my argument would be someone who has raised a puppy, has not raised a kid, but I was like a babysitter, for many years. Like I've dealt with small children before. I would say my argument for raising like a true puppy, like 8 to 15 weeks old or whatever, in some ways, like the demands are fairly similar. Like they're not potty trained. You're taking them out every hour or so. Like, and a baby can't chew through drywall. Like George chews through drywall. Like, yes, you can leave them in their crate, but like they have to be contained at all times. Like, and you're not like, oh, my, I'm holding my sleeping baby. It's like you're holding them and they're like wriggling and like whatever. So it's like in some ways, like I feel like the physical aspect, it's like if a baby could like run 15 miles an hour and you're like chasing after it.
True. I mean, I think the regimentation, the schedule, things like
Yeah.
that. Yes, there are some similarities, but I cannot wait to revisit this topic
No,
when
I'm
you're
sure
a little bundle of
I'm gonna
joy.
have a baby and then I'm gonna be like, what was I thinking? Like I'm gonna raise 7 more puppies.
Yes, yes, that's okay. That's called life. You always have to look back. It's just like, but you said it yourself. It's like you thought you were going to have this like idealized version, like when you got George as a puppy, and you've been a bit schooled.
Well, now I feel like I'm and I know like I got married in October. It's now like we're recording this in May. It's gonna come out in June. But we've been married for like 7 months and people are starting to be like, when are you having kids or whatever? And I feel like just I'm just starting to overcome the trauma of raising a puppy. So I'm like, it's gonna be a minute. Like, because I'm prepared now for like man-to-man combat when I like have a baby. I'm like,
And I
I
mean,
just
just
know how difficult it's gonna be.
yes, I mean, to clarify, I'm not asking you when you're having a kid.
Yes, you are.
I mean,
Maybe we
I
didn't
just
get it on audio,
maybe
but yes,
maybe
you
for
are.
planning purposes, but I'm not, there's no pressure, no
You're
pressure.
not like, when am I going to be a grandma?
Well, I mean, I am curious when I'm going to be a grandma, but you're not my only, horse in this race to become a grandma.
I
So
know.
you just never know. You never
That's
know.
that's true.
Well, okay. So Maddie, as we are doing these podcast episodes, one of the things we definitely want to talk about when it applies is, what some things that we're loving, some things that are making life
We're
easier,
trying to
and
be
some
our influencer era.
are, I don't even know what that means. But what are some of the products that you have used with George that you really felt were like life-saving? I know you and Dad bought out PetSmart when George was a puppy because you were any of those good things that you bought?
I mean, he shredded most things we got, like the bed and the stuffed toys. Now we can only do like the industrial strength Kong, like rubber toys. So that's really fun to play with. But I think I would say my biggest product and my biggest recommendation if you're getting a dog of any size would be to crate train. It's like the best thing we did. It was not necessarily easy, like, and it's like you have to kind of do whatever it is, like people say with their babies, like cry it out method. Like you have to do it with the dog, which I will say, and I know there's so many opinions on sleep training, whatever. I can only say my experience with a dog is like you have to do it. Like it's so painful and they're gonna cry and bark and whine, but like you have to just tell them like you are in this crate at some point. Like once they can kind of hold their bladder, like don't do it the first couple weeks you get them. But I remember we had come home to Dallas and I was still getting up overnight to let George out. And you were like, you're in a home, like you're not in your apartment anymore. Like there's some extent of like, you want to be respectful to your neighbors when you're in an apartment. Like, don't let your dog cry all night. But you're like, just leave him in the laundry room all night, and like he'll be in his crate. He's gonna be fine. And it worked. Like after that, like he slept through the night. And so I would say get a crate. one that can kind of grow with them too. Like, kind of, it sucks when like you're living in an apartment, like we're in a 1 bedroom apartment. We have a massive crate, but get one that you can grow with, or it can grow with them. So that would be my biggest recommendation. My other one would be like find like a brand of like treats or chewy sticks or whatever, like you're going to give your dog for entertainment, and just get it every time. Because I realized, like constantly trying to be like, oh, is there something better out there? Should I give them, like, it upsets their stomach to change the toys. It gets expensive
Mhm.
trying new things. Like they might not like it, whatever. So like if you find something your dog likes, like just go with it. Whether that's what we used to do, which was sticking a Baby Bell cheese in a Kong for him and let him have at it. Like just, no shame. You got to do what you got to do.
Well, okay, so one time when I was visiting you, I didn't realize that George owned the whole Baby Bell cheese stash in your fridge. And I think I actually was gonna treat
And he
myself
stared
to a
at you.
Baby Bell. And I was like just unwrapping the Baby Bell. I mean, he was death staring me. And I was like, what is even happening? I just was gonna eat this piece of cheese, but clearly those were George's cheese.
Yeah.
So
Well, and before people leave us like angry comments, I'm sure it's like not good to give your dog a Baby Bell twice a day. Like we no longer do it following the $2,000 vet visit. He now only
okay.
eats dog appropriate food. But it did get us through a solid year of like, that was his mental stimulation, was getting the Baby Bell out of the Kong.
Oh my gosh. So is it true you're not supposed to give him Baby Bell cheese?
I mean, I think dogs can, I mean, don't quote me. I think small amounts of like low fat cheese, like not like a soft, like it has to be hard cheese, like a low fat cheddar. Like don't be giving your dog like feta or some soft cheese. But I think it's like not going to kill them. But I don't think probably in the amount we are giving him, it's probably not recommended.
Probably not recommended. I gotcha. Well, and I think the other thing, what I would say the essential, like must have for raising puppies, and we have it here and we've had it at different times, but I think you alluded to it. It's that who is that either dog walker or that
Hmm.
the vet or the boarding, the day play. We're really fortunate where we are now because our dogs, their groomer, the day play, the boarding, vet is all in one location.
Yeah,
It is honestly the best thing ever
yeah,
because if
that's
we
really
go out of
nice.
town, we bring them there, and while they're there, they can get groomed, they can see the vet. It's like one-stop shopping. It's obviously not free, and that's, but again, you're paying for that convenience, but that has been really, really helpful to have that all in one spot. And I know you really love, your people, your day play people and dog walking people.
Yeah, no, you need your village. But yeah, this was like so fun, but equally kind of triggering having to re-talk about George's stomach issues from 2 weeks ago. So need another therapy session real quick.
Okay, well, yeah, talk to your therapist about that.
But yeah, I mean, if you're hopefully you've enjoyed our first episode. I know I can't speak for you, Mom, but I had a lot of fun recording this for the second time with my audio issues. But yeah, we'd love for you to leave us a review wherever you're listening. Even if you're not enjoying the show, you can give us some constructive criticism. It won't make me cry.
Yeah, maybe skip that constructive criticism. Let's keep it positive. Let's
Okay,
be
okay, don't give us
a
a bad
source of
review.
let's be a source of positivity. Well, this has been very fun, Manny. What do I care? I mean, I get to talk to my daughter, and any mother is going to be very happy to spend time with their adult daughter. So I get on this podcast whenever you want. You can also check us out on Instagram. We're at the Millennial and the Mom, and the former teacher and me just wants to point out that Millennial has it's 2 L's in the middle, 2 N's, and an L at the end, but you got
I
to
came up
spell it
with the
right.
name and I can't spell. Like I spell millennial
Right.
wrong anytime I type it.
Okay, so you got to be able to spell millennial to find us on Instagram. But yes, we are really excited to have you back next week. We got another topic on our minds. We got so many topics. I think isn't our catchphrase, Maddie? We're experts in nothing but opinions about everything.
Yeah, because we are not experts in anything, but yes, we have an opinion on quite literally everything, whether it affects us
Everything.
or not.
Yeah, true.
So yeah, come back next week, check us out. And well, I guess, just TTYL, Mom. See you later.
TTYL.
It's not even cool anymore to say that. You don't know what TTYL is. The Gen
I'm
Zs
just
are probably cringing.
I have to process it. Talk to you later. Gotcha.
Yes.
Talk to you later. Okay. Talk to you later, Maddie. Bye.
Okay. Bye, Mom.